So welcome. My name is Jessic with Generational Gardening. The whole focus is to create a generational wealth of knowledge so you can have the most longevity when it comes to passing down seed genetics, teaching family members and friends how to garden so they can feed their own families, kind of getting rid of that dependence on kind of big ag, putting that power and that security back in your own hands. And so today we're going to talk about milpa and companion planting. And so with this system, last week we talked about Fumvudza. So in that system, there's planting stations. Each planting station is 6 to 7 inches deep, 6 to 7 inches wide. You put about 2 tablespoons of ash on the bottom, a cup and a half of compost, and then you cover it with soil, and then you put 3 corn seeds and cover it up. And that's recorded on the last video. You can go back and watch it. It's a really huge system, and when implemented, it produced 10 to 20 times the volume of food in a harvest versus traditional agriculture in Africa and Zimbabwe at the time. So so that's the standard we started with. Now we're gonna branch off into these, and I feel it's really important when you're talking about different plants to add nutrition in there. Because if we just grow corn, labor is gonna get inflicted upon us, and that's not good. So nutrition is really important. And I really believe that we can get all of our nutrition from the food that we grow, so that way we don't have to be relying on a multivitamin as much. Because when we eat our nutrition, our body absorbs it better than we have it from a third-party form. And so nutrition is an infinite topic. We can talk about it forever. Everyone has an opinion on it. My background's culinary, so I'm not a food scientist, but that's, food nutrition is something that I had to focus on whenever I was menu planning and stuff. So I'm gonna make this as simple as possible. So for a male, I'm gonna start with the male and I'll finish with the female. For a male, you need 1 pound of grain. You need a half a pound of legumes. You need 1/4 of a deep orange squash. 2 handfuls of some sort of seed. It can be sunflower seed, it could be chia seed, it could be pumpkin seed, sesame seed, watermelon seed. You need 2 handfuls of seed. So about a handful is about 1 ounce. So 2 ounces or 2 handfuls. And then 1 tablespoon of poppy seed. And this will cover most of the nutrition. Now, there are some nutrients like lycopene that you're not going to get from a deep orange squash as much as you would from a tomato or watermelon, but I'm going to get into that a little bit later on. So this right here, this system is for 1 male. It averages about 2,400 calories and covers most of the nutrition that's needed. So with the seeds, it's going to add a little bit of fat as well as complete protein. The squash is for your beta carotene. The poppy seed is actually for calcium. Now we have a lot of calcium in our leafy greens, but in that we also have oxalic acid. And oxalic acid actually inhibits the absorption of the calcium. And so there's ways to process the food to get rid of oxalic acid. However, most of your spinach or any leafy green that has high calcium levels, it's going to have the oxalic acid in there. So poppy seed is one of those food ingredients that has loads of calcium in it, but it does not have oxalates in it. So it's really interesting, so it's worth growing. And so this is going to be about 2,400 calories, about 100 grams of protein. And so, and for the for a an adult female, all you would do is in this exact same diet except use 0.8 pounds. So just a handful less of grain. And what that'll do is I'll reduce the calories by about 200 calories. So men and women, there's a very small difference in calories. The proteins are still the same. 100 grams of protein is still a good number for men and women who are active. The squash is there for vitamins. The seeds are there for complete protein as well as healthy fats. And the poppy seed is there for calcium. And so, when I was studying the Funvuza method, one of the things I went over is nutrition and how much people need to eat per day. And especially went over water requirements too. And so when you're using different types of grains, it's important to consider the limitations. So if you're using corn, you want to nixtamalize it. So you want to add your wood ash to it or a lye, and you want to nixtamalize it so you have that niacin come out. Being able to extract different types of nutrients naturally from your crops and from your food sources is really crucial if you're relying on it. And so next time you enter a store, I want you to go over to the grain section and look at what a pound of rice looks like. Or I want you to look at if they have any there's certain companies that sell, bulgur wheat. I want you to look at that, what a pound is and how much, and think about, I need to eat that, for a male at least, I need to eat that for a female a little bit less. So think about a handful less. And look at a pound of legumes and think, that's half a serving per day. And so this right here will cover most of the nutritional needs for an adult every single day. And so it's really important to get the squash in there because you will go blind. It's really important. And so the huge proponent to this system right here is the Three Sisters method. And with the Three Sisters method, it was used in different tribes all across North America and Central America. The most important thing was the nixtamalization of the corn, and it allowed the squash, the beans, the corn to be utilized to a near complete food system. The only thing this will not produce is vitamin B12. And vitamin B12 you can only get from animal proteins. So B12 is actually produced by a bacteria, and your ruminants, your different animals, as they're digesting their food, it's being created and absorbed into their body. And so you can get B12 from shiitake mushrooms. However, it's not as reliable enough that I would put my life on it. And so a lot of the different tribes use the corn, beans, and squash to cover this, and they had sunflower seeds as well. Different types of seeds they would use with their food, but the corn, beans, and squash was the staple of the diet, and it was near perfect. Again, vitamin B12 is the only thing that it does not provide. And that's my understanding of the Three Sisters. The nixtamalized corn, beans, and dehorned squash covers the bulk of your diet. They also have a Four Sisters, adding sunflower seeds, and that's why I have a seed there. And sometimes a Fifth Sister's added. It's more modern, and they add amaranth to it. Amaranth is really nice because it's high in lysine, which makes it a nutritional powerhouse closer to a legume. However, it's a complete protein. So by having a grain, like I grow spelt. I like spelt. It's a crop of abundance. I sow it when I have an abundance of food for next year because it overwinters. So I can use that for a grain and supplement my legume for amaranth, and it increases my protein. It's a healthier protein. It's more complete, and it backs up the amount of lysine that I'm missing from my grain that I would normally get from a standard legume. And so the Abenaki people of the northeastern Canadian woodlands, they had 7 sisters. And so what they did is they grew corns, beans, and squash, sunflower, sunroot, which is also known as Jerusalem artichoke, ground cherries, and tobacco. And that was their standard polycrop that they grew every single year. And so by utilizing this understanding, I feel that we can create a system that we can grow in our own yards, or at least be able to partially cover in order to get the maximum amount of nutrition out of the land that we're stewarding. And so we can start creating our own system of intercropping by examining the different groups of people that have farmed here throughout the thousands of years that they've existed. And so in North America, the Three Sisters method has the corn as the beanstalk, with the squash as the ground cover. In Central America, the Mayan people in modern-day Guatemala have an intercropping system called the milpa. So the milpa, very much like the Three Sisters, is an intercropping system. This one is a little bit more in depth, as the milpa system creates an acre's worth of food in 1/10 of an acre. Milpa is a system of intercropping and regenerative agroforestry. So what that means is that the final intention of the milpa system is to grow back a forest. And so the principles can be cross-utilized for our biome here in Kansas City. You know, Kansas City, we're really blessed here. We have not only prairies, but also forested areas. So in our biome, we can actually cross both systems and create a really unique system here that can be fully express benefits of both sides. As your more permaculture systems that utilizes fruit trees, you can have a nice shaded area. You can grow more crops that aren't, not all crops appreciate being in sunlight 24/7. Well, not really 24/7, but it seems like it's 16 hours a day of sunlight. And so it's really hard to grow certain crops if you don't have a lot of shade. And so our biome allows us to have a different hierarchy of trees. We can have understory trees, we can have nice bushes, gooseberries, we can have pawpaw trees, we can have the giant oaks if we wanted to. And then we also have the benefit of a prairie system. And what the prairie system does is it creates up to 20-foot deep wells of water. And these are fast-growing perennials. And as we go into milpa and how the milpa system really is created, here in Kansas City, we have a really nice biome where we can actually reflect this using plants that are more indigenous to North America instead of Central America. And so the milpa system is normally a 20-year system. And so it examines the 20 most dominant plants in the Mayan forests, and they are insect pollinated. Only one is being wind pollinated. So the goal is to have a food forest and insect pollinated. And what that's going to do is it's going to create more abundance of life. A lot of your prairie systems are, there's actually a lot that are insect pollinated, but a lot are wind pollinated as well. And so in the Mayan forest, out of the 20 most dominant plants they have, only one is wind pollinated. Most of your pioneer species are going to be wind pollinated. So a pioneer species is, let's say there's a big fire that happens and it burns down your crops, your plants, or there's a big soil disturbance because someone has a bulldozer and they're moving land. The first plants that pop up are going to be your pioneer plants. And these plants are really important for building biomass in the soil and nutrients in order for plants to be able to thrive, your perennials and your shrubs and your trees. And so a lot of times people say in order to build a forest, you have to feed a forest to a forest. You have to take down trees and break them down and spread them throughout the forest floor for nutrients to have more generations. And so the forest milpa cycle starts with short-term annuals dominating for the first 4 years. And this is going to be your short-term annuals. So out of the short-term annuals, corn is going to be the dominant shade-producing crop. And so, normally when we think about corn, it does shade out other crops. It's interesting. I don't know if anyone's looked at videos online on YouTube of people doing Three Sisters method. Sometimes if their corn is overshading the squash, the squash will start to grow really tall to try to get that sunlight. And so a lot of times, especially when you're creating a solar farm and you're having a south-facing farm, you want your taller crops to be in the back so they don't overshade your crops. Now, with a system like this, where most of the plants that you want to grow in-game are partial sun, or to a half sun, you want them to be in an environment that's conducive for their growing. And so when you first start a milpa, you plant everything, right? So ultimately, I'm going to have short-term perennials, and I'm going to have fruit trees. And so I'm going to plant my fruit trees while I'm planting the rest of this stuff. And I'm going to use my short-term annuals, my corn, to help shade my shrubs and shade my trees as they're developing, so that way they can get to the point where they can start providing shade for other crops. And so corn is going to be your dominant canopy plant providing shade for the rest of your system. The next step in this cycle is growing perennials that will cycle out the annuals. So eventually, in this system in Guatemala, the next step would be banana trees. And so eventually the banana trees will get so big that they'll overshade the corn, and the corn will no longer be the dominant shade-producing crop. And so the second cycle is going to be 8 years. And it's going to be fast-growing perennials. The final cycle is the closed canopy cycle, which is dominated by fruit trees and orchards. And this cycle will last 8 years. And that's a 20-year system. And so, who out here has been to Wyandotte County Lake? All right, so as you go in Wyandotte County Lake, they have persimmons and pawpaws, and we missed pawpaw season, that's already gone, but it was really nice to hit it up last year. And so pawpaws are an understory tree. So they don't need as much, they can be in full sun, but they don't need as much full sun. They really thrive right underneath the canopy of a larger tree. And they send out runners, so it's really cool that the only way you can get pawpaw fruit is by having two separate plants cross-pollinate, or separate trees cross-pollinate. And so the whole point of the milpa is to get the food forest back to its original state. And so for us, we will be doing more fruit trees, so you're looking more at more of a permaculture system. And so you would plant apricots, peaches, apples, and these provide the covering. Give me 1 second. This will provide the covering for the rest of your crops. And so you'll have these giant, massive trees that are really efficient at producing food. Apple trees, pears, peaches, all these different trees are really efficient at creating food. They provide nutrients for other plants surrounding. They provide food for animals, housing, places for your birds to perch and rest and kind of wait for more food to arrive. And so these are really important for a ecosystem to have trees. And so this kind of goes from our traditional monocropping into more of a permaculture system where you have more of a food forest. There's different aspects of a food forest. However, for the milpa, they focus more on the fruit trees, apple trees, a fruit orchard. And so after the 20-year completion, right, they burn it all to the ground. And so by burning all of it to the ground, they are resetting the system. And all of the ashes from the fruit trees and the perennials will go right back into the soil, creating a more dense humus in the soil. It'll create a stronger ecosystem because the bacteria likes the alkaline soil. And so basically, a forest is dominated by fungi. Fungi creates acidity in the soil. It naturally balances the pH at 6.5%. Or not percent, at 6.5, right? That's the medium because fungi actually needs oxygen just like we do. It has to breathe, and it also releases ammonia. And so over time, the pH of the soil drops. And when you do that controlled burning, you're pushing the pH up again to a 7 to a 7.5, which is where you're going to have your pioneer species really dominate. They like alkaline soils, high in bacteria, not high in fungi. And so as you do that burn, you're resetting back to where your brassicas are really going to thrive. All these different crops that may have struggled a little bit during these later years are now going to start thriving again. And so what they'll do is they'll do controlled burnings in different patches and then regenerate that patch to how it was before. And that's how they build massive food forest systems. And so on one of the educational things I was watching on it, they said that the forest was food for everyone, but the milpa plot was food for your family. And so they built these systems to where everywhere was food in the forest. And everyone had access to these community gardens in the form of the fruit trees, orchards, a food forest, access to it. And then when you wanted to provide food for your family, you only took a small amount of plot. And so with this milpa system, they were able to produce on 1/10 of an acre the same amount of food that they would produce on a full acre. And it would be for the families to support themselves. And so this system relies on the companion planting and succession planting. And that is spearheading the food production. The intercropping system is spearheading the food production as the trees are starting to mature and produce fruit. Then as the trees start to take off, it becomes more dominant. You're not producing as much of your annual crops anymore. Now I do want to clarify, last week we talked about Fumvudza. In Fumvudza, burning is a big no-no. And so the reason I am explaining this is going to segue into how we take this essence of understanding and apply it to our biome here in Kansas City. And so we can actually implement this using different prairie plants and different plants we could use here for food. Now, I talked about pawpaws. Pawpaws would be a really nice intermediary plant through here. It sends out runners. It's really fast, and it produces food. It'd be a really good fruit tree understory food crop. I think there's a lot of different examples here locally, very local, that would be really good for a food orchard or a fast-growing perennial. And and with the Fumvudza, the year-long covering and compost, you would create from not burning would increase your harvest beyond the nutrients the ash would provide for your soil. Again, this works in a food forest system, right? This works in a food forest system, and we're going for more of a hybrid system. And so we're kind of gonna hover around this area right here. And so even just mulching alone will do more than the compost and the wood ash. And so we're gonna start going into intercropping. And so I'm gonna go through all the different plants that we will find here that we grow for food. And I'm going to go through when to plant them, how much sun they need, and the companion planting. And so a lot of the milpa that I've seen, they will plant their corn, and then when the corn starts to dry, they take a machete and they hack it right in the middle, enough to they bend the corn over, and then let cowpeas or beans trellis up it. And that's how I see a lot of the time they do the milpa when they're doing the beginning years of it. And so to bring this back into food production from land management, this really land management system stewardship, spotlight different crops and focus on each companion and plant dates. So we're going to start with spring. So this one's going to be this is going to be a lot of writing. So I apologize. So we're going to start with onions. Okay, so onions. We're starting with spring planting. So I'm going to go through all the crops from a spring mindset of I'm planting these in spring, and then I'll go on the fall crops after this. So planting onions in the spring, they require half sun. Their outdoor planting day is March 1st. Their harvest is from May 10th to June 14th. The companions that they do well with are beets, carrots, lettuce, spinach, and tomatoes. The next crop is peas. So this can be a field pea or it can be a climbing pea. A lot of the crops on this list are talking about more of a bush variety than a pole variety. And so your peas, they're looking at half sun. And those go in the ground on March 8th. The harvest dates are May 3rd through May 24th.
I have a question. You said that onions are the companions of tomatoes, but you're doing it in half sun, so the tomatoes need full sun? Or is it a type of tomato?
Yeah, tomatoes need full sun. So on something like this, if there's a portion where you're planting that a tree is maybe adding a little bit more sun throughout the day on a hotter part, you can plant an onion there. Where the part that gets a little bit more sun, you can plant a tomato. And so, and I'll go through all of these and formulate different mock systems to where if you have an area that has a lot of shade, you can plant these and they'll do well together. Or if you have an area that has some mixed sun and mixed shade, and so next week I'll just lay out the different designs for all the different plots you can create using these. And so
And that tomato is going to be the tallest of everything you mentioned, so it's going to get the more sun and shade the others a little bit too.
That's true, yeah.
Maybe like the corn, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, because onions aren't that tall, so, you know, it wouldn't be hard to shade it out. It'd probably get shaded out through some grass. And so, the peas are gonna be on May 3rd through May 24th, and their companions are gonna be carrots, turnips, lettuce, spinach, radish, and corn. You're going to find that everything loves corn. Everything loves corn. Yeah. And you also, it was interesting when I was writing all this stuff down, I noticed that a lot of the what they considered New World crops and Old World crops are really just to go really well, like in two different categories. So a lot of your New World crops do really well together. A lot of your Old World crops do really well together. And then a lot of your heavy calorie producing crops all love each other. And so it's really interesting to see that as we continue on. So spinach, it's going to need quarter sun on spinach. So very little sun, does not like the sun. And that's going to be a March 8th planting. The harvest is going to be April 12th through 26th. And so on a lot of these, this is the earliest you can plant and the earliest you'll get a harvest. You can always stagger them to increase your harvest window of your different crops. And so if you wanted, well, spinach is one of those that go to bolts. And so, you know, it's really when I give these out, they're not ultimatums, right? This is the suggested time to plant it, and you can stagger it. You can wait a couple weeks. It's not like, oh man, I missed the deadline, so I can't plant it now. It doesn't get that way until we talk about fall crops. And even then, our fall is a little bit more mild here. Our freeze date is October 15th, and so we didn't get our first freeze till like November 23rd. And so we had almost or a little bit over a month of more grow time. My amaranth really enjoyed that. And so cabbage is going to be the next one at half sun. You can start it indoors on February 8th. And you can transplant it outdoors, or you can sow it by seed outdoors on March 15th. And then it's ready for harvest on the weeks of May 10th through May 31st. Oh, I didn't give you the spinach companions, I'm sorry. The spinach companions are peas, cauliflower, lettuce, and onion.
I have a question. On
Yeah.
the spinach, once you put the plant, once you seed it, and it gives out the first harvest, does it still continue just coming up after that on the same seed, or do you have to reseed it?
It depends on your focus. If you are focusing more on like your microgreens and only having baby spinach, once you pluck it, it's over. Or you can just harvest the leaves as it goes. I like harvesting the leaves as it goes because I can utilize the stalk of the plant at the end of the year for my compost and for mulching. And so, but like my amaranth, I do a lot of amaranth, and so my amaranth will produce 100,000 seeds per plant. And so with that, I can do more of a microgreen, or I can grow it in the ground. If you're only going to grow it until it's ready for harvest, sometimes, I mean, how many days is that? That's not a lot of days.
Yeah.
And you're looking at 5 weeks. I mean, you could probably even grow that in just a nutrient water instead of taking all the time to plant that into the soil, depending on how much you're trying to plant. And so, I love spinach. Spinach is great. Super high oxalates. So it's one of those things that has a lot of anti-nutrients in it. And if you don't process that, it's actually going to sap nutrients from your body. And so Kale and cabbage are way better for you than spinaches, just because of the anti-nutrients. And so on the cabbage, February 8th is when you can sow it indoors. March 15th is when you can sow it outdoors or transplant it. The harvest is the week of May 10th to May 31st. Its companions are beans, spinach, onions, beets, and potatoes. Beans, spinach, onions, beets, and potatoes.
Sounds like a great meal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You have whole meal plots, you know, and it makes,
Things that make good companions also tend to be good in the same cook dish, right?
yeah, well, I mean, if they do well together, it can come back kind of a malnourished soil. A lot of times, plants will release something called, or a lot of times plants are allelopathic, so they release toxins. And so some plants can, like sunflowers and strawberries, both release chemicals that kill other plants. And so they can actually be planted somewhat similarly together, okay? And the toxins aren't going to harm each other as much as they would harm other plants. So you can have like a border of sunflowers in your strawberry patch, and you don't have to worry so much from the allelopathic chemicals for the strawberries.
Put all the allelopathic ones together, so you have this radioactive wasteland.
Right next to your black walnut tree.
Yep.
Actually, sorghum is allelopathic too. So that's something, if you do a syrup sorghum, or if you grow Milo or a grain sorghum, that is also allelopathic, and it'll actually attack the disease and viruses and bacteria in the soil. So if you have like a diseased soil from a crop, and this keeps coming back, or you have really bad fungal issues from a crop, if you plant sorghum there, it'll actually purge a lot of the life in the soil. It's really interesting. And so cauliflower, yeah, there's a lot. I can talk all day about it. Cauliflower, half sun. You can start it indoors February 8th. And you can transplant it outdoors or plant it outdoors by seed on March 15th. It's ready for harvest May 24th through June 14th. Its companions are beans, spinach, onions, beets, and potatoes. The next one is radish and turnips, kind of lumped together. It needs half sun. And the plant date is March 15th. The earliest harvest is April 12th through April 26th. And it only likes lettuce and peas. Which is good, because that's a salad right there. Next, we have beets. They need half sun. March 22nd is their plant date in our biome. The harvest is May 3rd through May 24th. The weeks of, so it can go 6 days beyond the last date if you plant it on March 22nd. Its companions are onions, lettuce, cabbage, and bush beans. The next crop is potatoes. That one is full sun. March 22nd is its planting date for a May 31st to June 21st harvest. Peas, cabbage, bush beans, and corn are its companions. Broccoli is the next crop. Very important crop. Broccoli has some antioxidants and enzymes in it that is so important for health. Half sun, you can start them indoors February 22nd. And you can transplant them outdoors or sow them outdoors on March 29th. The harvest dates are May 24th through June 14th. Broccoli likes beans, spinach, onions, beets, and potatoes. So not all things that, potatoes doesn't like broccoli, but broccoli loves potatoes. So that's very common. Not everything likes each other. So that means when you're planting, right, you can start your bed and you can have your potatoes in the middle and your broccoli up front. The broccoli likes potatoes, and then right behind the potatoes you can have your bush beans. And so you can layer, like a lasagna, everyone likes lasagna, you can layer your bed so that way you're not forcing different crops to be around each other that are not as productive. And like I said, next week I'll get all that slammed out, and so I'll produce multiple designs. I like making designs. So I'll do multiple designs of all different types of systems. And so,
does broccoli have that same chemical that spinach has in it? Or that same anti-nutrient?
it's going to be in a lot of your leafy greens that have high, anytime you have calcium, you're going to have oxalates. It's even in sorghum grain, it's everywhere, right? And so the biggest thing is if you're going to eat greens, boil them. And if you do that, you won't have kidney stones. So oxalate acids create kidney stones. And so the two ways you can combat that is lemon or lime juice. If you either have it with your food, or you make like a lemonade or a limeade and you drink that. Or if you have stinging nettles. If you grow stinging nettles, which are fantastic for the body, it's a very healing plant, and you can also create fiber out of it. And so stinging nettles are really important. You can also make a manure tea from it. Stinging nettles, the leaves will fight against oxalates and break down kidney stones. And so lettuce, that needs quarter sun. That is going to be indoor March 8th. And so you can start growing it indoors for the transplant. You can sow it outdoors March 29th. And a very short crop. It's done by May 3rd through May 24th. And lettuce loves everybody. Lettuce likes onions, carrots, beans, peas, spinach, radish, and turnips, and probably corn. The next one is carrots. It requires half sun. We're looking at an April 5th plant date. It's ready June 14th through the week of July 5th. It likes peas, radishes, lettuce, onions, and tomatoes. The next plant is Swiss chard. It requires half sun with an April 5th plant date. If you really like Swiss chard, Experimental Farm Network has a unique seed of Swiss chard that will last 3 years. So it'll produce 2 seed crops, sometimes 3 seed crops from the same plant. So normally, same with beets, it's a biennial. On that second year, it produces seed that dies. This variety of it will keep on living and producing more greens and producing more seed. So if you really like Swiss chard, that's a
What's the name of the seed company?
Experimental Farm Network. They have a lot of really, really cool hybrid crops, wild hybrids. I love them to death. And they're a nonprofit, they do good work. And so Swiss chard is half sun, April 5th. It's ready to harvest at May 17th. And you can keep harvesting it beyond the frost. So it's one of those that you harvest it all year long. They just keep producing. It likes other beets, lettuce, and radishes. Yep. So next one is bush beans. Depending on your setup, could be pole bean as well. Bush beans, and so when I say bush beans, these dates are going to be for green beans, right? So they talk more about green beans and sweet corn and summer squash. If you're doing winter squash, they say pumpkin. If you're talking a grain corn, then you would wait another month. If you're talking about a dry bean, I would wait another month. So the dates I give you are for green beans. And so just add one more month to it if you're doing a dry bean, and it'll give you around that time that it's ready for harvest. So bush beans require full sun, and April 26th is when you can plant them. Their harvest date is June 7th through June 21st for green beans. And generally, you wait a month longer for dry. They like cabbage, lettuce, carrots, peas, radish, and beets. And corn, yes, very much corn. A lot of these, so a lot of this is based off of what is it? There's this whole chart. It's from a farm in Missouri. I forget the name of it right now. I can't even think. I pull it up at the end of it. But there's a chart that has like a pull system, and it only has so much space on here. So it's really the most important ones. But yeah, everything loves corn. It's really interesting. Corn gets along with so many of the staple crops. So it's really easy to put corn in your system. And so especially like, if you have things that require half sun or partial sun, you could really use corn as that shade element. And so bush beans like cabbage. Okay, I already went through that, sorry. The next one is sweet corn. Sweet corn requires full sun. There are some sweet corn varieties that produce 7 cobs of corn. So if you like sweet corn, you can grow lots of corn on a small plot depending on which variety you grow. I have a really nice variety of Anasazi sweet corn. It's really hard to find. So I'm excited to grow that because it produces 4 ears per plant and produces a blue sweet corn. And so sweet corn, full sun. April 26th is when you plant your sweet corn or any corn. April 26th. It's ready, sweet corn is ready to harvest between July 5th and July 29th. Really, when the silks start to turn brown, is when the sweet corn is probably in that milk stage. You can pull an ear off. burst the kernel open. If it runs white, it's in its milk stage, just ready to eat. Dry corn, the earliest is August 25th. Really mid-August, and that's the earliest varieties. A buddy of mine, Dave Christensen, his corn is one of the earliest corn varieties in America, and it's not ready by August. His is like a really like September 15th it's ready. So, you know, your dry corns are gonna take a lot longer. So I would say add another month to it. So probably, you know, August 23rd and beyond is where your grain corn is gonna be. And so your corn likes pumpkins, so squash, melons, summer squash, cucumbers, potatoes, peas, and beans, and about half of everything else. The next one is cucumber. I'm excited about this one. I got a few bush varieties I want to plant. Do some container gardening. It's in full sun. You start them indoors April 12th, or you can plant them outdoors May 3rd, really late. They'll be ready for harvest June 14th through July 12th.
They don't take too long.
No, not at all. Cucumbers are great. Yeah.
Will they be the big cucumbers or the small?
Depends on what you're growing. So these they're standard pickling cucumber, and so I go for bush varieties because it's you know the vines are only 2 feet tall. They're ready to harvest in 45 days. So super fast. So I do the bush varieties so I can have more of them, so I can have more genetics.
And that's how you would look for them?
Yeah.
A cucumber?
Yes, yeah. And next week I'm gonna just go through all the shortened varieties and how to get the most amount of genetics out of the smallest amount of space. And so I even have bush butternut squash that the plants only grow 2 feet. And so yeah, and I have bush watermelon that grows about 2 melons per plant, and it's only the vine length is only 18 inches. So like in this little space here, I can have like 15 plants. And normally I'd only have like 3 or 4. And so I can really get the most amount of my land with genetics. It also means that if I have those, you know, vine killers, the squash borers, they can't hit every plant. They can try, but they're not gonna hit every plant. If I have, you know, hundreds of tiny little plants versus, you know, a handful, it's a lot easier for them to be able to survive that. And then I can also monitor more. I have more plants I can monitor, so I'll catch it better. And so, cucumbers are great. I'll go into that in like 20 minutes, how great cucumbers are. And so cucumbers, it's June 14th through July 12th. Cucumbers like corn, cabbage, broccoli, tomato, beans, and peas. The next is summer squash. It requires full sun, just like cucumbers, full sun. You can start summer squash indoors April 12th. And it suggests you plant them out there either by seed or transplant May 3rd.
Do you have better luck germinating them before you take them out, or would it be better to seed them outside?
If you, okay, this, and so the advice I'm about to give you comes from Joseph Lofthouse. And Joseph Lofthouse is one of the leading geneticists when it comes to creating heirloom plants. He said if you can start a squash outdoors in the ground, it's better than the transplant. So the roots will have, you have healthier roots if you start them outside by seed. And that's going, he has multiple, so he lives in a zone 5 in the mountains. He has a 90-day grow time. And so they can't grow squash there. So he imported all these genetics from all over the United States, and he created a variety that would grow there reliably. And so he said he has better luck planting them in the ground to create stronger roots, which can absorb more water and more nutrients and create better vines. And so if you can put them in the ground to grow them instead of transplanting, it'll be better. You have any other?
No, I was just, I agree, because I've tried doing the germination inside of the house, and
Yeah.
trying to take them out.
Yeah,
There's just something about it that just doesn't, like, half the plants don't make
I
it.
see that on the back of pumpkin seed packs, is like, plant them outside.
Right.
They're not
Yeah.
gonna do well if you try and transplant them, so.
Yeah.
Since summer squash and winter squash are basically the same thing.
Yeah, and I actually got some acorn squash I'm gonna grow. Just the cucurbo pepos. I really like them as a bush variety. They're a very clean bush variety, and so I'm gonna be growing a lot of acorn squash this upcoming year because the plants are not that big and I can produce a lot in them. And as soon as they're done, they're done. I got a few pumpkin varieties from Russia too that are in the same bush variety. It's in the same, it's also cucurbo pepo, but it's still a bush variety. So I'll be excited for both of them. So yeah, outdoors, May 3rd. Summer squash starts getting ready June 14th through July 5th. And summer squash loves bush beans, onions, and corn.
When you talk about how the plants love another plant, are you saying that they just worked well together, or is there something about having that other plant near this plant that's gonna actually improve its performance?
So a lot of times when I study companion planting, a lot of plants release toxins or they release sugars through the roots. And so a lot of times, like when we go back and we look at the bush beans, right? So bush beans create these little nodules in the soil or in their roots, and they fix nitrogen in there. And so bush beans, four of the plants they liked were root crops. Those root crops aren't going to expand much, and a lot of your root crops actually fix phosphorus. So there's not going to be a competition. The roots aren't going to try to take the nitrogen from the plant, and it's going to allow the plant to basically grow these nodules undisturbed. And so a lot of the times that when I study these different companion plantings, a lot of it is a chemical that gets released, or how the root systems work, or sometimes that, oh, well, this plant, like if I do electromagnetic gardening, and I put in these poles in the ground to bring electricity from the atmosphere, what that does is that excites the microbes in the soil, right? When doing so, it has no effect on your brassicas at all. And then what I come to realize in my studies is that a lot of times it excites the fungus in the soil. And fungal dominant soils have no effect on a lot of your brassicas because they did not get the brassicas from a forest. A lot of your brassicas are your pioneer plants, right? And so because of that, they're very unaffected by fungi. They don't have that established trading network. And so sometimes it's just kind of like how the plant interacts with the biome around it, and that some may do better than others. And there may be other reasons that I don't know about. It's just from what I've studied, a lot of it has to do with how they interact with the microbes in the soil and how the plants interact with the nutrients. So if they're going to compete a lot, by planting it, you can create a void of nutrients in the soil by having too many of a certain crop around. And I had a study I forgot to write it down. If just by planting, like let's say you're doing monocrop corn, just by planting another plant besides it, you're reducing how much destruction you're doing on the nutrients in the soil by over 50%. So it's really, but just by intercropping instead of monocropping, you're allowing that soil to kind of, you're not destroying or taking away as much nutrients from it. And so I don't know if does that help?
Yeah, that totally answers it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And so the next one we have are melons. Melons like full sun. You can start those indoors April 12th, or you can plant them outdoors or transplant on May 3rd. Harvest is July 12th through July 26th. And melons only like corn and okra. And melons is watermelon and cantaloupe, your muskmelons, so it's kind of blanketed. The next one is peppers. It requires full sun. You can start them indoors March 22nd. Or you can transplant them or sow them outdoors May 10th, which is what I'll be doing. I'll be planting my peppers outdoors. I'm not transplanting them this year. I have about 3,000 Chimayo chili seeds that I'm going to sow directly into the soil because I want them to naturally become adapted to our climate.
So these are all peppers, right?
Sweet peppers, chili, all of it. Yep.
I didn't go so big.
Yeah, mine didn't even grow at all, you know?
I have maybe like 2 little babies.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm adapting stuff. So my plants, it's a graveyard back there, you know. But the ones that make it they're used to the treatment that I give them, so they'll be stronger each year. And so I adapt my crops to be able to deal with turf grass and Johnson grass, and so that way they can combat it better. So that way, if you go to an empty lot and you have to like quickly adapt it into a food lot, you can do so with the seeds. And so some crops do really well against those. And so peppers are good from July 5th to frost. They kind of stop it when it gets cold. Peppers like bush beans, carrots, onion, and okra. The next crop is tomatoes. They also like full sun, and just like peppers, you start them indoors March 22nd, transplant them, or you can plant them by seed outdoors on May 10th. They are ready to be harvested July 12th through the frost.
What was that again?
July 12th through the frost, tomatoes are ready to harvest. They have the same planting dates as peppers do. And then tomatoes like carrots, cucumbers, onions, and peas. Okra is another plant I'm excited about growing. I have an ultra cross with 50 different varieties and then a few other ones. Okra is really nice because you can get a burgundy okra and it has the lycopene in it, which is really important nutrient we're going to find out here in a little bit. And so it's a great way to get it, and it produces really well. So okra you can start indoors April 19th, or you can transplant it to planting outdoors May 17th. Okra will produce food from July 5th until the freeze. So peppers, tomatoes, okra, and then your Swiss chard. Those are some crops that once you get established, they'll keep producing. So as your other crops are ready for harvest, you take those out and you can plant in their place crops that also enjoy okra, tomatoes, peppers, and Swiss chard. And that's how you can have that rotation companion planting and be able to really maximize what you have already there. And so okra likes melons, cucumbers, and peppers. The last one on the spring, we're going to go through fall, spring is pumpkins. Pumpkins require full sun. Indoor start is the 26th. Again, we want to plant them outdoors if possible. The outdoor date is May 17th. They'll be ready between August 2nd through August 16th. And the only thing pumpkins like is corn. Fall crops. So a lot of times when we look at their spring crops, you saw peas and lettuce and spinach a lot and all these things that are really associated with spring and colder crops. Now as we switch, we're going to see a little bit of a difference on the crops we see for companion planting. So as we go through these crops, you're going to see either some short-term cold weather crops, like your turnips or carrots appear again, or you'll see a lot more of the longer-term grow crops, like your okras and corn. So onions, don't grow onions. Don't do onions unless you are going to cause them to go to bolt. So if onions spend 10 days in cold weather, it would trigger them to bolt. You can do that by planting them earlier in the season, in springtime, very early spring, like in February, or even early March. You can plant them outside to cause them to bolt. It's the only way I would recommend planting your onions is if you have a multiplier onion. If you have a potato onion, you can plant that in fall, and it will multiply into spring. And then you can separate them again and do another harvest. And so potato onions are really unique. They're going extinct, so if you want a unique onion cultivar, potato onions are great. They grow in separate little bulbs you can pull apart, and that way you don't have to use an entire onion at once. You can use parts of an onion, and they're very shelf stable. And so next is tomatoes, full sun. The latest to start them indoors is May 31st. And the last day to plant them outdoors is June 21st. Any after that, you're not going to get a harvest. Well, you might. You get some northern determinants, but it'll be harder to get a harvest from most of your varieties. Your harvest will be August 23rd through October 4th if you plant on June 21st. Yeah. Tomatoes like carrots, cucumbers, onions, and peas. Peppers, full sun. Start indoors June 7th. The last outdoor date is June 28th. Your pepper harvest will be August 23rd through October 4th. Pushing it. They like bush beans, carrots, onions, and okra. Next is melons. They like full sun. Last outdoor date is July 5th. Anything after July 5th, you're not going to get a harvest. They'll harvest out September 13th through September 27th. Melons like corn and okra. Potatoes is next, full sun. Last planting day, July 5th. Potatoes will harvest September 13th through October 4th. Potatoes like peas, cabbage, beans, and corn. If I'm going a little fast, I do apologize. We still got a lot of stuff left, and I'm taking up a little bit of time with this. And so sweet corn's next. Full sun, also July 5th. For sweet corn, it'll be September 13th through September 27th. Wait an extra month. For grain corn, however, you're really pushing it at that point. And so I would only do sweet corn at this time. If you're going to do a longer grain corn, which has to dry out, if you can't get it in early in springtime, it's going to be really hard to get a harvest from it. Sweet corn likes pumpkins, melons, squash, cucumbers, potatoes, peas, and beans. Next is cabbage, half sun. Indoors is June 7th. Last outdoor planting date is July 12th. You want to protect cabbage from the heat, so if there's any midday sun, plant it away from that. Your harvest will be September 6th through October 4th. The beans, spinach, onions, beets, and potatoes are what cabbage like. Cucumbers, full sun. Last date is July 12th. And this will get you an August 23rd to September 20th harvest. Cucumbers like corn, cabbage, broccoli, tomatoes, beans, and peas. Okra, full sun. July 12th is his last date. It'll have an August 30th through October 4th harvest. Okra likes melons, cucumber, and pepper. Pumpkins or winter squash. Those are full sun. July 12th is the last day to plant them. Those have a September 20th to October 4th harvest. And it likes corn. Summer squash requires full sun. Its last day is also July 12th. It's kind of the cutoff for most crops is July 12th, it seems like. August 23rd through September 13th is the harvest. It likes bush beans, onions, and sweet corn. Or regular corn if you have it already established. Carrots are half sun. July 19th is the last date. You want to protect them from the heat. September 27th through October 11th is the harvest date. They like peas, radish, lettuce, onion, and tomato. Last full page. Cauliflower, half sun. Indoors, June 14th. Last outdoor date is July 19th. Protect it from the heat. September 27th through October 11th. It likes beans, spinach, onions, beets, and potatoes. Chard does good in half sun. July 19th is the last date you can plant it. August 30th through October 18th is your harvest date. Beets, lettuce, and radish are what it likes. Peas, half sun. July 19th is when you plant them. Protect them from the sun. September 13th through October 4th is the harvest. Carrots, turnip, lettuce, spinach, radish, and corn is the companions. Beets are half sun. July 26th is the last day. September 6th through September 27th. Onions, lettuce, cabbage, and beans. Broccoli, half sun, indoors June 21st. Last date is July 26th. Protect them from the heat. September 20th through October 18th is the last days for your harvest. Beans, spinach, onions, beets, and potato. I got 4 more and we're done. Bush beans require full sun. July 26th is the last day to plant them. September 6th through 20th is going to be the harvest. It'll be longer for dry beans, but you don't have much longer. So you might lose a harvest on that a little bit. They like cabbage, lettuce, carrots, peas, radish, and beets. Radish and turnips, half sun, August 9th. So that's a really late crop. So August 9th, you can still be planting crops. September 6th through October 4th is your harvest. It likes lettuce and peas. Lettuce is also a really late game crop. You can, that means quarter sun, and it's planted in August 16th, and it's ready September 20th through October 11th. It likes onions, carrots, beans, peas, spinach, and radish. And the last and final one is spinach, quarter sun. August 23rd is its last date. September 27th through October 18th. Peas, cauliflower, lettuce, and onions are its companions. And we're done with the companion portion. It's a lot. It's a lot. It took me like 4 hours to write that. I'm not gonna. It took me 45 minutes to say all that. So you gotta get up and stretch for a second, you know.
Just stretching.
So all right, now we're to the fun part: eating water. How to eat water, right? And so water is vital for life. Every aspect of our lives, from existence to food, hygiene, industry, and trade, depends on water. Water is very important, especially for the future. So having different clean forms of it is extremely important. Different crops we can grow have different water amounts. And so let's take watermelon, for example. Watermelon. It's at 96% water. So a 7 to 12 pound icebox watermelon, which will fit in your fridge, has roughly 6.5 to 11 pounds of water. Okay? So for a 7-pound watermelon, right, at that 6.5 pounds of water mark, that's just over 3 quarts of water, about 3 liters of water. Okay? So 7-pound . 7-pound watermelon, which is small watermelon, 3 liters of water. Now, why is something like that important? This is the daily minimum for an active male. For an active female, it is 2 liters of water. Now, this is not,
Why is it so much less?
huh?
Why is it so much less?
That's what they, so on part of the conservation agriculture course that I'm licensed with, in that we were talking about wells and how important water is and to create dry farm crops. And so in that, they came that the absolute minimum a male needs is 3 liters, the absolute minimum a female needs is 2 liters. And this is normally in dry areas in Africa. And so,
Sorry, I'm getting more like physiology and stuff. Never mind, continue.
oh, you're fine. Well, they also consider like food sources adding to it. You know, mind you, in my mind, it's a gallon a day. You know, is what I want to get. But for them, they're thinking absolute survival.
Yeah.
And so, if you can get a minimum of this, you know, you'll be pretty all right. Assuming that some days you'll get more.
Sure.
And so, again, it's what they're promoting with the agriculture thing over there. So again, I mean, in my mind, 4 quarts. However, how they want it taught is this. So I do understand where you're coming from. So 1 7-pound watermelon will be 3 liters of water. And the advantage of this is that you're not having to purify it or cook it. Is that you have something that you can eat fresh that is going to provide hydration and also antioxidants from the watermelon, which is huge. Vitamin A is really important for us. Lycopene is really important for our bodies. Tomatoes and watermelons are the #1 way to get it. And so, This is the daily suggested minimum from the agricultural sources that are promoting this. And so, by growing food that can be eaten fresh, you are building up a supply of clean, clean water, that can help reduce the dependence of a city water supply. And so that's really important because who knows what they put in there and what people flush down the drains. This is adding not only nutrients in liquid form, but also a clean water source. And then, especially as we move forward, where, you know, a lot of farmers I work with, they're worried about global water supplies and fresh water supplies in the future. They're really worried about it. And so having forms that we can consume water outside of, you know, a local water supply is really important. And so things you can eat raw, right? Now, some of these contain anti-nutrients, and so understand that when I say eat raw, it's raw, it's edible. People may have no problem eating raw, like tomatoes, for example. Tomatoes, people eat raw all the time, right? Well, in the seeds and in the peel, there's anti-nutrients. And so take that into consideration. And so watermelon is at 96% water. Cucumbers, 95% water. Cantaloupe, 90% water. Strawberries, 91% water. Tomatoes, 95% water. Radish, 95% water.
Wow.
Yeah, radish has a lot of water, but they're tiny though. You know, it's not like you're getting, like a watermelon has a lot of weight behind it. A radish doesn't have a lot of weight.
So dense and like planty.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're probably counting the leaves as well in this. And so, because greens are at 95% water. And so, blueberries are at 85%. Blueberries are great. Carrots are at 88%. Snap peas are at 90%. Celery is at 95%. Okra, which grows until it freezes, 89%. And the slime behind it, right? Everyone's like, oh, the slime. The slime actually makes it to where it's slower to digest in your system. And so it takes longer for your body to ingest it. So Molokhia is an Egyptian mallow. Molokhia, or jute mallow, has a slime to it. Your succulents have more of a slime to it, like your nopale. And same with okra. And what that slime does is it slows down how fast your body metabolizes the water, making it slower for you to actually dehydrate it out. And so it's really important to have different aspects of this, especially when you're cooking. Now, you know, okra may not be everyone's favorite thing to put in a stew every day, but that has benefits to having it there. And so, especially at an 89% hydration rate, that's pretty good. And so, kiwano. I don't know if anyone's heard of kiwano. That is the jelly melon. Okay? You get them for about $5 a melon at certain stores around here. Jelly melons are great because they have 88% water, but they have up to a 6 to 9 month storage rate. So you can store water, 88% water, in the form of this jelly melon for up to 6 to 9 months. So talk about a mobile water bottle, you know, you know, and it's very much like your lime. It's like your lime Jello, you know, very very much in the color and consistency. So that's something that's really really crucial, is that there's crops that can last a long time and can be eaten fresh. Cabbage is 93%, and sweet peppers, depending on the pepper, is roughly around 92% for your bell peppers. And so those are the ones you can eat raw. Now some of them, like peppers and tomatoes, you might want to, burn the outside of it and take the skin off and take the seeds out, for the anti-nutrients. But at the same time, people like slicing tomatoes. So I'm not gonna try to tell anyone how to eat your tomatoes and peppers. And so the ones that probably need to be cooked or processed a little bit more. Sometimes your zucchini. Now I've eaten zucchini raw. A lot of people do. It's one of those that it's not everyone likes it raw, and so it can be processed a little bit. Beets need to be processed. So zucchini's at 94%. Beets are at 87%. Eggplant is at 92%. Syrup sorghum stalks, which you compress them for juice just like sugarcane, is at a 60 to 75%. Onions are at 90%. Butternut squash is at 87%. Winter squash is at 90%. And tomatillos are at 92%. And so I feel like a good way to simplify it is to think about 7 pounds of mostly raw produce a day. About 5 to 7 pounds of mostly raw produce a day will be close to your water requirements, minimum water requirements. So what you should attain every day. And so think about, okay, every day I need 5 to 7 pounds of vegetables, right? Seems like a lot, but you can have a 20-pound watermelon. Strawberries, it all adds up, right? So if I'm eating celery, let's say I'm making salsa, right? Okay, I have tomatoes, I have onions, I have peppers, I have cilantro. All that adds to my water intake, and so it's as you're looking at it. Okay, how many pounds of produce did I eat today? Am I getting at least a couple pounds of produce, right? Am I getting at least 2 or 3 pounds?
And these are just like without it being in stews or making smoothies or any of that. This is just 7 pounds of just the watermelon, the strawberry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you can add them to stuff, right? But this is just like a, if I'm having a nice salad, right? I know I said cook your greens, but if you're having a nice salad and you're using like, you're eating it for dinner, and using half a head of lettuce, and you're adding, tomatoes to it, maybe some sliced red onion, maybe some mushrooms, some cucumber, right?
In there and some sunflower seed.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and then, and so like all of these add a certain amount. So let's say you have like a 2-pound salad, right? You have a nice big salad, all these veggies in there. It's 2 pounds, right? Well, that's a liter of water, right? So that's just one of the 2 to 3 you need a day.
Right, okay.
You do that 3 times a day for meals.
Exactly. And so that's a way to get your water intake in from a nice clean water. And so it's just I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, all these this food has so much nutrients to them that we need, and it has so much water and there's no calories. And I'm like, instead of thinking it as the water being the problem, the water's the solution. And so when I started thinking about, okay, and that's a lot in the permaculture, right? The problem is the solution in permaculture. And so by sitting here thinking, I'd have to eat, 72 pounds of tomatoes a day to get my calories. It's like, yeah, but 72 pounds of tomatoes is, like 15 gallons of water. It provides so much benefit in other areas that I'm not considering when I look at it from, can I survive off this or not? And so the last and final part, and then we're done, is eating the rainbow. Heard that a million times, right? Eating the rainbow. And so I'm going to go through really quick the colors, the nutrients, the effects on our body, and then we are finished. So eating the rainbow. Red foods is lycopene, anthocyanins, and vitamin C. Lycopene is a powerful antioxidant and helps with heart health and reduces cancer risks. Anthocyanins are anti-inflammatory, brain health, and reduces oxidative stress. Vitamin C helps with immunity, skin health, and iron absorption. Very important. Very important. My female family members need more iron in their diet. Iron is very important. Vitamin C helps with iron absorption. The fruits that contain lycopene, anthocyanins, and vitamin C in the red foods are tomato, watermelon are the two highest, then strawberries, cherries, and raspberries. The vegetables that are high and the red nutrients are your red bell peppers, beets, radish, red cabbage, which is amazing, and red chili. So your orange and yellow foods are going to have beta carotene, vitamin C, flavonoids, whichever accent you choose, and lutein. The beta carotene is going to be vitamin A, and for eye health, skin health, and immunity. Right now, there's a problem happening really bad in certain parts of Africa. Children are going blind, and it's because they do not have orange foods in their diet. A lot of the grain they have to eat comes from corn, and it is commonly a white corn, a white dick corn. That's the only thing that can survive a lot of the fungal diseases and pests in Africa. Africa is a really hard place to grow crops. A lot of the natural insects there are really good at just destroying corn. And so it's had a really hard time over there. And so your lutein is going to have eye health and prevents macular degeneration. That causes vision loss. Your fruits are going to be oranges, mangoes, peaches, which we can grow, apricots, we can grow, pineapple, we have a greenhouse, and papaya. The vegetables are going to be carrots, sweet potato, pumpkin, butternut squash, yellow peppers or orange peppers, yellow or orange corn. In corn, the yellow and white corn is dominant. So if you have a mix of corn and you have yellow and white corn, it is dominant. It will start to overtake. So you have to replace it. So your white corn adds very little nutrients. So yellow corn. So if you have a corn that's becoming dominant and you have no choice but just to accept it, remove the white corn, keep the yellow corn, because at least you're getting some beta carotene in that. And golden beets. All right. So your green foods are going to have chlorophyll, vitamin K, folate, calcium, magnesium, lutein, and oh man, I can't even say this word. Zeaxanthin. Ugh.
Right up on the board, spell.
Yeah, here. There you go, that word.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so the chlorophyll detoxifies, supports health, and repairs oxygen flow. So it detoxifies your blood. It supports your your health by repairing your oxygen flow and helping your oxygen flow. Vitamin K is for bone health and blood clotting. Lutein, and this word, protects eye from eye damage from UV rays. Folate helps with DNA synthesis and cell division. And these are found in your leafy greens like spinach, kale, collards, amaranth, and chard.
Will your collard greens be the same as chard on how you were planting them earlier?
Collard greens, I do cabbage, but they're more heat tolerant. They're like almost the same plant, just how it folds out. Except collards are more heat tolerant. So I would put collards. I'll probably still do a half sun on collards, but they're a lot more heat tolerant.
They can be closer to the sun.
Yeah. If you don't have a lot of shady places, you have to plant leaf crop. I would do collards in the sun. Yeah. And then the fruit, we're looking at kiwis, green apples, avocados, and limes. And then the vegetables, we're looking at broccoli, Brussels sprouts,
Love Brussels sprouts.
zucchini, green beans, and cucumbers. All right, 2 pages left. Only 2 pages left. And so our blue and purple are going to be our anthocyanins. Resveratrol, RESVERATROL, and vitamin C. The anthocyanins again boost brain health, reduces inflammation, supports heart health. Anthocyanins are all the rage nowadays, like Johnson County beige used to be about 10 years ago. And so the resveratrol promotes longevity, very generic, heart health, and anti-aging effects.
That's your purple blue?
Yes, purple and blue. Yes. And so that's going to be for fruit, blueberries, blackberries, grapes, plums, and figs.
Eggplant?
Eggplant would definitely. Vegetables versus purple cabbage, eggplant, purple carrots, purple potatoes. I would even say, well, we'll go into even more so than that.
Is that what the difference is on for the purple potatoes is because it has that particular?
Yep. Yeah, so a lot of these antioxidants that are crucial to like fighting cancer and helping heal our body are in the colors. And so,
They even have like a purple cauliflower.
yeah, they do. Yeah, and then even in amaranth, I love amaranth. I'm obsessed with it. Even amaranth, you have red, purple, and green varieties. And so you can have from your amaranth alone. I'll be breeding more this year my amaranth to have more of both purple and green on a leaf. So every leaf you have has a little bit of anthocyanin in it. And so with that, like the colors, eating the rainbow. But like a lot of times I think about, oh, well, I don't want green plants because everything's green. And it's like there's some acids in green leaves that are so healing for the body. Like what is it? Cumin leaf? No. Cilantro. Cilantro has some amazing, they did a whole study on it. Cilantro has certain acids in it you can't find anywhere else. And so they did a huge study between cilantro, purple amaranth leaf, and green amaranth leaf. And if you combine all three, you have some very rare acids that help your body heal itself and antioxidants. You're covered so well just from those 3 plants. And so yeah, it's really interesting. The more I wanted to get more in depth in studies, but I mean I can talk for 4 hours straight on studies. So the next one's going to be your white and brown colors. It's more potassium. They put down fiber, but fiber is really not dependent on color. There's an absence of nutrients, and so there's not a whole lot of potassium. Allicin, ALLICIN, and selenium. And your allicin is going to be from onions, garlic, and that helps with immune system and heart health. Potassium is going to regulate your blood pressure, support muscle function. Selenium is going to protect against oxidative damage, and that's all the stuff is found in your fruits that are bananas, pears. We can grow pears. White peaches, we can grow that. Dates, we cannot grow in this climate. For vegetables, cauliflower, garlic, onions, most mushrooms because of the flesh, and also the portobello mushrooms and white button mushrooms and parsnips. And then this is found a lot in your grains and nuts, your whole wheat, quinoa, oats, almonds, and walnuts. And the last one, and we're done, is going to be in your deep, rich, dark purple, almost black foods. Anthocyanins, iron, and zinc are the heaviest minerals and antioxidants found. The fruit's going to be blackberries and black currants, or your black raspberries. Vegetables going to be black garlic, black rice, and black beans. Black beans are really healthy, really important for your health. In seeds, you're looking at black sesame and black chia seed. And that is it. That is what I have for today. I'm going to go ahead and shut this off real quick.